All right. Welcome back to the Board Drill Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kyle, here with my co-host, Matt. Tonight, we have a special guest, another two-time guest. We have Scott Leech, who is the University of Rhode Island Associate Director of Strength and Conditioning. Coach, welcome back to the show.
You know, this has been my favorite podcast. So I forgot about the round of applause. No one else does it like you guys.
Yeah, we're just all nothing but production value here in the Board Drill. We're excited to have you back on. Obviously, last time I thought was such a great episode. We were just talking right before we launched or started this episode, how I'd never really heard of contact prep before that. And then I heard it and I was like, I literally went out like the next day before our episode even aired. And I like texted every coach. I was like, you got to listen to the next episode. This contact prep stuff is awesome. Like it makes so much sense. And, you know, I know it's been a big piece of what you do, but we just had a chat and now you have a new thing coming out called Scores and Stops, and it's on scoresandstops.com. I know it's not live yet, but hopefully probably by the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be live. Let's just say yes. And, and we'll get it going. So, you know, real quick, if you want to go ahead and just briefly talk about, you know, obviously tonight we're going to get into it, but the Scores and Stops, what is it and what are we really focusing on tonight?
Yeah. So, you know, a couple of years ago, I put out the whole, my thought process, how I kind of structure off-season summer training, called that the Gridiron Warrior. And the two biggest sections that people always want to know about one was contact prep, because there wasn't a ton of that, you know, coming out of COVID. And the other one was all these games we were playing. It looks like, you know, we're having a blast, we're having fun, and we're playing all these games and drills, and what are those and how does that fit? And, you know, I give it the category of just scores and stops. So offensively, you know, we're trying to teach our players how to score. How do you do that? You have to get open. You have to create space. Whether you're a wide receiver, you know, getting open or reading a block and trying to manipulate a defender. If you're a running back going through the hole, or even if you're an offensive player, right, is, you know, let's say you're a pulling guard, now you're out in space and you have all this space to work with. How do you manipulate this defender? Because you know that you want to turn them back inside or you want to kick them out. So even the big guys can benefit from this stuff. And then on the flip side, scores and then stops. You know, stops is closing space. As a defender, there's a right and a wrong way to make a play. So can we close that space? Can we do things like short stride, you know, long stride to short stride? Can we keep our shoulders square so there's no cutback opportunities and things like that? And, you know, I'm just a strength coach. I'm not a football coach. I'm not in there every day, nor can I be doing all these drills with every single position. So how can I sneak some of these things in, though, to what we already do in the off season and what we already do in the summer? The analogy I always give is if I'm giving my kids these drills and these opportunities, am I going to bring the sleds out to make them faster? Yes. Am I going to bring the lasers out and record them and time them? Yes, that's going to make them faster. But when you get them in these drills, you get them processing and you get them thinking, and, you know, a big thing being that military term, the OODA loop, right? Can you orient, you know, observe, orient, decide, and act? Can you figure out what's going on? And the faster you can do that, then you're making their game speed faster. And then when they go out to practice and the coach is like, wow, he's moving around a lot quicker. You know, whatever you did in the offseason works. It's like, yes, because you can put the biggest engine in the world in a Ferrari, you can put the nicest brakes on it, but if you don't get the driver better at driving, then it's all for nothing, right? So putting them in more of those drills and scenarios when you're far away from football, right? When during the season, we don't need to do it a ton because they're doing it in practice every day, but in the off season and summer, you got to do it. So, put the whole course together just because I guess people like what I have to say in terms of how do you layer these things? How do you start with the easy drills and go to the harder drills or go to the more intensive drills as the summer goes on? How do you change it for the big guys versus the skill guys and things like that? So put that all together and it's coming out any day now.
And I think it's especially a big deal for our audience, you know, high school coaches across the country, not just because they want to know how, but let's be real, it's a finite time, right? They have so much time in season they're spending on it. And then we get to off season and it happens so quickly. It's kind of like that, oh crap moment. What do we got to go do? Right. And so they focus so hard on the weight room and kind of sprinting and then the weight room and all this stuff that some of these agilities and change of direction drills, you know, may get left by the wayside early on. But I like your program because now they can just go to your website, right? And they can, whatever the process is, and you can talk about that later, they purchase it. And now they have this bank, if you will, kind of like we always talk about, right? We have like play banks for offense and defense. And now they have this bank of drills that they can go to every day and say, all right, we're going to do these 3 drills, or we're going to do whatever. And it's a huge piece for high school coaches because, right, if I can create a bank of, 50 drills, now I can do a different, like you're saying, you're gamifying it. You can do a different set of drills every day. It keeps the kids fresh. They're excited. They're having fun. And it's fun for the coaches as well. So I think what you're doing is awesome. I'm a huge fan. I don't coach right now, but if I did, I would immediately buy this and implement it because it's right. Matt, you know this, and I'm going to pull you in here. The off season can get boring and monotonous if you're a high school guy, right? You're a coach, you go in there, right? We're going to squat. We're going to go out and run sprints. We're going to do this. We're done. Maybe we throw 7-on-7. It's kind of boring some days. It gets boring as a coach too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And as a head coach, you're always looking to develop your staff. So I think a big part of this is you can take a young coach and show him this and have him run the program. And that's going to develop that young coach even faster and put some responsibility on his shoulders. But you know that he's doing something solid that's going to help your team and make you better. So it's a good way to give out responsibility to your assistant coaches.
That's a great point. Great
Cal,
point.
You hit on it. One thing that high school coaches tell me is that a lot of the stuff that I put out there, it helps with retention rate too. So if you're a high school coach and you keep losing your kids when the season ends and they go to that random trainer down the street and you're like, man, I wish you were with the team doing team stuff. Maybe it's because they don't want to do your team stuff and they want to, but you start putting some of this stuff in and they get to play games with their teammates. And I've seen and I've heard from coaches that retention rate improves, especially in the summer. No knock to trainers, but maybe if these trainers were doing these drills, it'd be a different story. But a lot of trainers aren't doing that. So that's one big thing. And then I'll come back to it.
That's huge. And as coach, especially in our home state right now, obviously we have coaches from all over the country, but if you're in the state of Florida where it's open enrollment and kids transfer like crazy here at the high school level, having a fun off season, like you said, with retention is huge. Because I promise you right now, the quote unquote Florida high school transfer portal is wide open right now. After some teams have gotten kicked out of the playoffs, and Matt, their priority announced it on Twitter saying, I'm spend the next 2 years of my high school career over here. So we get it and we crack jokes about it all the time. But Coach, I'm with you. Like retention is a huge thing in the game of football now because players have no problem transferring multiple times at every level now.
We talked about the young coach on your staff too, taking this on and getting them a chance to coach up the kids and learn. I think one big piece of this too is, you don't get the opportunity to work on these skills the way you would. Like I use the example in basketball. If you want to work on a certain aspect like pick and roll, you can get a couple guys together and do pick and roll, and you can play it out kind of like live 1v1 or 2v2 pick and roll. You can't really do that as much in football. And even something like 7-on-7, like, don't get me wrong, I like 7-on-7, it's good, but there's certain scenarios here that, we got to work on closing out. We need to work on, if they go trips, how are we going to defend this? And then what does it look like when they actually block? How do you leverage it? How do you vice the situation? So I consider it kind of, in soccer, they use the thing small-sided games. It's kind of the mini version of what you would do in basketball. If you didn't like something, you would set it up and just work that scenario. Why not do that in the off season as well? And the kids don't know. The kids just think it's games and it's fun. And again, the more practice you give them, the better they're going to look by the time you get them back on the field for real.
Yeah, I think it's great. So we're going to get in. I know, Coach, you said you want to share some stuff and get into a little bit about what it looks like, or what do you want to do with this?
Yeah. So I hear the complaints, the very few of them that I have, and coaches are always, they love the drills and they want the drill bank to go to. I've heard coaches say, we used to do mat drills a lot and we'd have stations for our mat drills. And, instead of maybe always just doing like the sled pushes and the 5-10-5s, we're going to mix one of these 1v1 tackle, tag off drills. And that replaces your sled push. And it's like, that's a great step up because now you're working a football skill instead of just gassing them out. I don't have a problem with gassing them out. We get a time and a place for everything. So
correct. Yeah.
So doing a better job of when you do get the course, yes, you get the explanation, you get the why from me in terms of how I set things up, why I do that. Because I think it's so important to understand the why, not just give you a program. Because I want you to be able to rip pieces from it. I want you to be able to take it apart, fit it into what you already do. Because a lot of coaches already have a really good program. They're just looking for a couple things to take them to another level. So I give you all that, and then I'm going to do a better job this time around of having the library a little bit easier to access and get to. So when you do just want to look at the drills and be like, what was the name of that drill? Where were the cones set up? Well, you can just go to the video and it'll be right there. So that's the plan.
Love it. No, drill bank, all that good stuff. It's good. It's exactly what coaches are looking for when we go through this stuff. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of these drills with the scores and stops? Like, obviously, I know we're creating a product around it, so we don't want to talk too much about it. But at the same time, do you want to share just a few things that coaches can understand exactly what it is?
Let me see without going into
without giving away the boat, right?
The secret, without going into the secret ball. Let me see what I can pull up for you. All
right, we're back. Coach Leech has a screen shared, so we're doing the scores and stops online course. He's going through a couple pieces of it for us here. So again, this is not the full program. You can go to scoresandstops.com to see it, but Coach was nice enough to hop on and share a little bit of it with us. So Coach, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so this is from our, what are you going to learn as an offensive player? Got a couple things there, right? These are kind of checkpoints. When I'm putting these drills together, am I teaching the offensive players these things? But people always say, like, all these games you play, they don't transfer. They don't, like, you're just playing games to play games. I don't think that's necessarily true. So I'm going to find a video here. I added a little in-game clip. Excellent. So this is actually from our first game of the year. We were down. We've been down in a lot of games this year. But we were down 4, 30 seconds left. Wide receiver's going to catch this thing over the middle. And he's going to make one player miss. He's going to read his blockers that are over here on the side. And he's going to score with less than 30 seconds left to take this thing over. And we end up winning this game, first game of the year, under the lights. But you can see just that one little cut right there in terms of the offensive skills we talked about. Understanding the situation in the OODA loop. Manipulating this defender, making him think he's going to go one way and then go back the other. Understanding his space and how much room he has to work with. So what tools are going to work. Him stopping completely and stutter stepping and is not going to work. He's going to put his foot in the ground. There's too much space here. And then you can already tell his eyes are looking around and saying, okay, what's going on in my situation? He had a wide receiver and a tight end out there blocking for him. So he's like, okay, I'm aware of that. I'm going to have to use that to my advantage. And we'll give you this angle too. This is the over the top view. I think I stop so you guys can see it. I guess I just got to let it play. I need my cowboy. So he's down here. Got him right there. He's going to just come across the middle. And 21 is going to be, I think, out of the screen for now. Yep, he's back here at the back of the screen. And, I talk about the drill, 1v1, tag in the box. And we talk about how this is, a 10 by 10 box. It's right here.
Yeah.
You're in open space and you got to make somebody miss. And this guy's got a closed space. And we practice this all the time. This is a classic setup in the summer. 1v1, can you make this guy miss? Can you score? And then can you pay attention to what's going on out here and understand maybe which way you got to cut or which way you got to go around those blockers and score. So, I just want to show that clip there and say, for anyone that doesn't think these drills carry over, I see it. It's there. The transfer is 100% real. And whether he's thinking about it in the moment or not, he's probably not, but he is benefiting from the stuff that we do in the offseason. And these things are, I don't see him doing sled push in that situation, but I do see him doing what we did in the summer in that situation right there. So that's just one little clip there. And
I love the clip because that from a guy who's seen a bunch of your drills, because obviously I follow you on Twitter every time you post the videos and everything. That looks like one of your drills right there, right? It was a game situation, but it looks right. He's coming at an angle. There's a safety. He's got to make kind of a one move and get back outside. That looks like the stuff that you post on Twitter. And so it's a crazy you did a really good job of cutting that together. And if that's, what the program is that, and then a game example and stuff, that's awesome. And that's a really great example of exactly that correlation that we're looking for, right? It's hard to correlate that sled push. I mean, maybe for Matt and his guys on the O-line, it's easy to correlate, but as an athlete, right, a wide receiver or a defensive back, the sled push, you're like, this is great and I'm getting stronger, but like, how does that apply to the game? So I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, even I have some other stuff that we can, if we cut again, I can show you again. Even the big guys benefit from this stuff, and just being a general athlete, right? You can't go wrong with getting those guys out in space. But maybe the offensive line, that's probably the one position that's it's so nuanced that some of the stuff doesn't always apply. But I specifically later in the program outline, okay, here's your skill guys. They can definitely get out in space. They can definitely do bigger situations. Am I going to put my offense and defensive line in a 1v1 versus the punt returner situation? No, it doesn't make sense. I'm not going to do that. So how do you set up your summer training so that, I talk about this sometimes. We don't have a ton. We're not like a Power 5 with an unlimited staff and interns and stuff. So how do you make this work with 3 coaches on staff? How do you make this work when you only have 2 coaches there and you have the skills and the bigs and you want to get all this work done? Because I've had that situation. I let my assistants go on vacation, which is a crazy thing to some people. But when one goes on vacation, we're down to 2. And I give an example. There's one day where we did some cones. We did the grid work, and then we did 4 of these scores and stops type drills. Really 6, because it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 of those were dependent on if you were big or a skill. So I show you how to do it. You can do 6 different drills with only 2 coaches. All of that's in there because I think that's an important skill too. I get that. I've been there. I've been the understaffed person. So, and I know you want to put a good program together. Here's how you do it.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Matt, I can't, you can attest this like me. How many times during summer there's 1 or 2 coaches there or after school and you're trying to do strength things and you have 120 kids on the field and you're just like, oh my God, there's way too many kids here. I think sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Those are those moments as a coach where you got to reach into the bag. You got to have something ready to go at all times, and you look around and say, oh, well, we got coaches late or, over the summer or, they're not here. You got to have those tools to reach and pull out. And, you can't, the kids know when you don't know what you're doing or things have gone wrong. You got to be able to reach in that tool bag and go, hey, here's what we're doing today. We're going to switch it up a little bit. And, and present it to the kids as, hey, here's the plan.
Exactly.
I think, and that's, Coach, if that's in the program as well, which obviously you just talked about being in there, but that'd be something I'd be curious as a coach is like, hey, how do I run multiple drills when it's me and Coach Dixon, and I'm sure, do you talk about the actual drill setup and like where the coach is standing and everything?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So every drill I film as much as I can when I'm out there. So you'll get, probably at least 1, if not 2 or 3 different reps of it. So you can see it in action, you can see it live. And then during the course, I literally talk about each drill and say, okay, here is the, 4 defenders drill. Here's how it sets up. Here's where you put the cones. You can see in this example, we do this. So I talk through each one and that's the course side of things. So you get all that information. And then, like I said, if you went through the course once and you don't want to hear me talk anymore, that's when you just click into the library and you just watch the video and just need the refresher. You just watch that. You don't have to hear me talk. And then boom, you're off to the races.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea to do it quite like that. Who was it? The D-line coach that did so well. Obviously he passed away and it's very sad, but Craig Rowe, Matt, do you remember his D-line stuff was so good? He had a version where he talked over the whole thing. And by the way, it was one of the most incredible D-line things ever. And then he had kind of the same thing where you could just take all those film clips and use those as you wanted. So if you got it set up like that, it's perfect because I really enjoyed his. And to this day, I still access it a whole bunch when I want to look at D-line stuff. So I can just imagine having this, coach, like if I could have a D-line one and a linebackers one, a DBs one, a strength and conditioning one, and like a in the weight room, out of the weight room, all like that would just be a dream come true for so many coaches. Now I'm just getting excited talking about it.
It's funny, we play a whole season and I've had position coaches, not even strength coaches. I mean, some strength coaches have seen my stuff and said they liked it and whatnot, but I've had position coaches come up to me after the game and say, hey, we saw your drill on social media. We saw it on Twitter or whatever. We actually put that in during preseason. And I'm like, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like the positions doing it, but an example being we did a drill in the summer. We have that 1v1 tag that we just talked about in the demo there, but football is not done just, back to back or from a static position. Both of those players were running when that in game when that happens, right? So we got to get people on the move. So we do one drill where, wide receiver comes in jet motion and then the DB is trailing, but is following them as if, pre-snap going with him. And then, I throw a tennis ball into the drill. And then once he has the tennis ball, he can go. And we might put like a barrel down so you know where the end of the line is, so you know where the tackle is. And then after that, you get off and run. So these guys have a full head of steam, like they're, taking a jet mo and going around the corner. And then it's 1v1 tag from there. So I guess one of the coaches that we played against this year was like, yeah, we love that drill so much we put it in during preseason. I'm like, kind of wild. I kind of want to see that with pads on and see what that would look like. But so I mean, you can get plenty of stuff out of it, even if you're, not a strength. If you do some football coaching, I hope you can get something out of it.
That's another great idea, is just taking some of these and using them in camp padded as tackling drills. Because I've never thought to do a jet sweep angle tackling drill, but it's going in the bank now. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah,
because that's something I would want to do in my tackling drill from time to time. Because as a defensive back, as safeties and the overhang and the nickel, you get that weird angle on jet sweep. You have to come down and make a tackle, and so it's a brilliant idea that I've never thought of.
And we did it. We did the same drill for linebackers and RBs, and we'll just do it out of like an RPO situation. You know what I mean? So just go around the corner, and then it's on from there, just to give them the feel of where they're going to be on the field. They're not necessarily going to be doing a jet motion across the field. So you can easily set it up like that. And you can add, just again, I show you how do you make these drills more complex. And these are the thoughts going on in my head. Go jet mo and then just put a blocker, and you can, insert that person anywhere, and they can just take the most dangerous man. And then, so now you have like a 2v2 or a 3v2, and they take the most, and they two have devices. There's so much you can do with it.
Matt, what popped in my head was doing that, but if you're doing it with interior backers, simulating counter when you get the spill and when you don't get the spill, and making them fit off of that as backers. And I'm sitting here being like, after you just talked about that, me being the defensive coach, I'm like, how do we apply this to every run fit possible and just work that over and over and over?
We used to work this with, the spring game and with the receivers, talking about manipulating the defenders. And hey, we know that corner's responsibility this week is outside leverage. He's going to not leave that sideline area. So we're going to attack his outside shoulder as a blocker, and try to force him to the sideline. Or if he doesn't get out there, we get his outside shoulder, and the receiver running the bubble, he's the manipulator. He's the one that's able to kind of control the situation. Even from an offensive perspective, running a play like buck sweep, you want your running back to stay flat as long as possible till he sees that kick. He's trying to manipulate those defenders to the edge and cut it up inside. So it applies in so many areas, as an offensive coach especially, so many areas where you've got the skill kid, you got the ball, and you have blockers out in front, and those blockers have to understand that and the ball carrier at the same time.
And it's funny, we talk about, I would love to see our kids in the summer more. The hard part is I can't do some of these things with them, but, I would love to see our kids on their own time doing tackling drills, right? Get your rolls and finishes, get the bags out on your own and go do that. It's the same with some of these situations. Like, do we always have to do 7-on-7, or can we just work on, screens and bubbles and just set up that scenario on that half of the field and just rep a ton of it? Like, I love one-on-ones. One-on-ones are great, but like, let's do some situational. Let's do some 2v2 stuff. And, are they going to zone it? They're going to man it? How are we going to handle it? And do more of that situational stuff in the off season. I think, we could always do a better job as coaches is saying, hey, here's a couple of drills you could do inside backers. Here's some drills you can do to get your eyes trained and get that feel for it. The hardest part is we're hoping the kids can do it on their own, and they can't. So, if there's a happy middle, if you have a strength coach, hopefully that person can be like the happy middle that can't do the drills exactly as you, but can somehow train the skills that you're trying to get, the vision and things like that.
Yeah, but I think that's where, like, all right, if I'm a defensive backs coach, I come to you and I'm like, look, when our safety comes down on the weak side cutback, like we're really struggling with making that play. Here's 4 examples of it. Coach, go find a great drill during the offseason, right? Like they can come to you and do that, and then now you get to be creative and figure out how to implement that. But I think that's a super great resource for those coaches at Rhode Island to be able to come to you and say it like, hey, we're really bad at this. What's your idea in the offseason to get us better? And they have this great resource to go to and do that.
You know, we're at such that sweet spot level too of, you know, do we have these super raw Power 5 talented kids? No, you know, we get the kids that come down to our level, or we get the kids from a lower level that come up and they're ready to prove themselves. But we're in that middle where if you can find ways to make them better football players now, you're going to help our team win. It's not like they're just missing the strength or the power. Like, no, a lot of these kids have that. If they had a little bit more of the football stuff, they'd be at the next level. So if I can give them some of that stuff now, it makes them better right away. And in this day and age of transfer portal, I don't have 4 years to like slow cook it. You know, it's 2. And then if you have a good culture and doing things right, you can keep them here for a little bit longer. So in 2 years, let's get as many live reps as possible. Let's get as many drills as possible and throw them at them. And let's try and make them better football players now.
And, you know, by talking about your program, you gave one of the best sales pitches to a high school coach ever, right? Because that's high school. If we can just make everybody on our team 1 tier better, we probably win 6 or 7 games every year. Because, like, look, I'll be the first to tell you, like, I'm right. In most states, you got to have some sort of talent level to win a state championship, right? And you may never have that at your school. But if your school is kind of a middle tier school, if you can make everybody 1 tier better, just 1 tier, you probably go from a 5-5 team to a 6-4 or 7-3 win team. You're not worried about your job too much if you're at a middle tier school and you're winning 6-7 games a year consistently. And so we had this conversation in the car. It's weird enough that you just brought that up. I was talking earlier with a coach I know. They're all off for Thanksgiving, so we went and got breakfast together. But we were like, look at this school, XYZ school. All they need to do is take their kids and get them everyone's got to take 1 step, and they would be an 8 or 9 win team instead of a 6 or 7 win team. And that's really what it is in high school, because you got to work with what you got. But you made a great pitch there that you're talking about at Rhode Island, but that applies for every high school coach in the country. You don't get to pick the kid that walks in the door at most high schools. So you better be able to get those kids, every kid in your program, 1 step better.
And one thing I say too is when you start adding more of these drills in, it honestly helps with player safety too, because think about maybe, you know, the freshmen who just joined the football team and they're raw. If they're playing scout team, they're not getting a ton of practical experience. So then when you do finally put them out there, you're like, oh man, this kid's a liability right now. Like he's going to be in the wrong place, something bad. Or, you know, they don't know how to get in the right positions. They don't know how to get in the right. And what do they start doing? They start dipping their head, or they start putting it across where it shouldn't be. And it's, again, you know, yeah, you might be a scout team kid for now, but if you get more reps of this stuff in the off season, it might build your confidence up. It might teach you how to be in the right positions. It might teach you how to close space or get open correctly, so that next time you do put pads back on, you go back out on the field, you're in better positions. You're not overextending yourself to make plays. And then in the long term, you're probably keeping kids healthier by exposing them to these situations more and more.
Yeah, Matt, did you have anything there? So you unmuted your mic. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what really stands out is really putting the kids in the position that they need to be in. I know that, you know, anytime that we took over, like I took over a program or you know, got to a place, it was, let's make sure they start in the right position. You know, we know what we're seeing. We know where we should be, you know, by formation and the adjustments to make. And then where do we have to get to, you know? And that's a big part for all the defenses we ever had, is trying to get them to understand and know exactly what their responsibility is and where they have to be and where they have to get to, given what happens in front of them. It's that stimulus that really you need to work as a coach and make sure they understand where to be. And I think what, you know, you guys are doing really works that stimulus of, hey, I got to react and get to where I got to be.
one of my, and I don't know how you guys feel, I might ruffle some feathers, but one of my big, like, oh, I hate it, is pursuit drill. Because
Yeah, I'm not big on it.
I don't,
you know, like there's
I
no
don't like it.
stimulus. It's you're just busting balls to bust balls. Like I get it, you want to build in some condition, cool, but like there's nothing react. There's not, that's not football, you know. So it's like I
No,
read
in
something
fact,
too a while
I
ago
was
that
known
said,
for changing pursuit to try to add something in there, right? Like I would say, hey, the quarterback's dropping back. Hey, he's scrambling. I'd take off running. And I know I'm not much of a stimulus because I'm an old fat white guy, but it is, I'm with you. Like I wanted them to do something. So I would say, hey, we're going to spin cover 6, which was weak rotation cover 3 for us, Rip Liz. And so like in the pursuit, I would make them spin that. Then we'd run them at, still not perfect, but I wanted to give them more stimulus than just like, hey, line up, do a grass drill, get up and run over there. Like, okay, anyone can fall down, get up and run for the most part.
yeah,
So it's like, hey, let's think about it. I'd be like, hey, it's, tight end wing over here, 2 wide receivers over here. We're cover 6. Let me hear the communication pre-snap. I'd say, I'd snap it, see the post-snap rotation, then run. But I still didn't like pursuit that way either. I'm with you. Like I was like, we need more stimulus. The kids aren't doing enough in this drill. It's kind of a nah.
no one's ever watched the game and said, oh man, if only we did more pursuit drill. It's like, nope, there's probably something else there. Like,
Well, only practice against
I read
toss every
something.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read something that said the second half of the season, defensively, you're going to see more X plays on you, just because offensive coordinators have had time now to adjust and figure out how to get open and figure out how to get the ball into space and get it to the kids. And so as a defensive coach, you're thinking in the second half of the season, there's going to be more open field situations. So do I increase the amount of open field tackling I do at practice? And normally coaches start taking tackling away as the season goes on because you want to make sure player safety and all that. And I get it. But, X plays are going to happen because coaches are going to figure out where the gaps in your defense are. So if you don't want to tackle, fine, but you need to practice this open field situation. So again, another reason for these drills, another reason we put them in is because you are going to get caught in these situations, and it's better to have repped it out and prepared than be like, oh man, they're just hitting us with X plays. What do we do? More pursuit drill. No, that's not the answer.
Yeah, correct. I think we always did it like in camp, and then it was like just a drill that disappeared. And so, right, hindsight's 2020. Being a coach that should have been smart enough to figure this out, I'm like, I should have said, if we don't do this late in the season, why the hell are we doing it right now? But that didn't really dawn on me till right this minute. So there's another great example of shitty coaching by Coach Bradburn. But that's what I love. That's why I love talking with other coaches, because then I realized like how stupid I was for a while, and like I don't mind admitting it. I'm like, we did this and it was really dumb, but who cares if we don't do it anymore? But I'm with you. Look, I'm constantly worried about how to be better tacklers. I think every defensive coach is. And then the second one is, and I don't know how you build this into your stuff, because your stuff obviously you can't have a football out there, but turnovers, right? That becomes the name. Can we tackle people and can we force them to turn it over? If we can do those two things on defense, I got news for you. No matter what scheme we're running, we're going to be pretty good if we can tackle every time and make them turn the ball over. So I'd be curious. Do you guys do anything for turnovers or anything like that?
Between like that, contact prep, our D line does some hand fighting stuff. Like those are all kind of like nichey. Like, do I have time to squeeze this in somewhere? Can I find a way? We do some drills. Like we have some small, I've shown demos of it, of like 1v1, and you're just gonna break left, break right, catch a tennis ball. So like we're getting the hands involved a little bit, and the defenders can come over and make a play. But it's funny, I have a clip, and it's 3v3, and it looks like either kick return or punt return kind of vibe, with a returner back there, and we throw like a big kickball or something back there because I can't use whatever. I throw a kickball back there. And it's funny, the return man finds the gap, gets through there, and then takes his foot off the gas, and the defender comes from behind and just from behind knocks, and the whole crowd goes wild. The kids are eating it up, and he's a freshman that just comes in and pops that ball out. And I'm like, I tell our coaches that later, and they're like, no, he's a wrecking ball. Like he's going to play. And a true freshman, he's in there on like our blitz packages and stuff like that. He's just a freaking wrecking ball. But it's funny, like I knew then in that drill, I was like, oh, this guy's going to be a dude. Like, just playing a game like this, and he's thinking about stripping the ball and taking it out. It's awesome.
It's that level of competition, right? Like we can all go in there and squat in the weight room and maybe we get competitive, but right, like Coach Leach, if I go in there with you, you're going to squat way more than me. So it's hard for me to get ultra competitive with you, right? Because, I know we're at different points in our life, but let's say you're a D lineman and I'm a DB. Really hard to get competitive if you're squatting 600 and I'm squatting, 285, which still isn't bad for a small DB in high school. But, at the same time, like you're squatting 600, where's that level of competition? But I feel like with these other drills, it is pure, right? That at that point, the playing field's level, it's competing. And that's what I like about it is you get to find out who wants to compete on every down, who has that Michael Jordan-esque of like, look, I'm not losing ever. Like, let's go. And those are the guys I think that make the best football players.
It's funny because competition is probably an absolute core principle in everything that we do. And, when you do have that, you want to try and, do I want, to compete on the jump mat? Do I want to compete at squats? Sure. But what happens is typically, if I'm losing and I can't out jump you, what am I going to say? All right, see me on the field.
Yeah.
And how many high school kids? All right, see me on the field. I'll see you out there. Because that's where it counts. So now you have drills that you can do in the off season. They're on the field that look like football. And you're like, yep. All right. Do you want to compete or not? And this is what you do, right? This is how you make your money. All right, prove it. Let's see it. And, I think because we do so much of this stuff, I'm telling you, we do it probably 2-3 times a week in the off season and 2, 3, 4 times a week during the summer. We compete. We compete with everybody. I was telling you guys before the show, like, we're 10-2 this year going into the FCS playoffs, and 7 of those games were come from behind victories. So there's no flinch. There's no fear of we're not going to be able to get this done. It's like, okay, let's go compete. Let's just go get it. And it's definitely a foundation of what we do. And I make it a point. Like, we need to have these drills in every week.
Yeah, it's Matt, you can attest this. I'm going to ask you a question. I hope you go to the right place for this. When you always did something randomly different, right? We're like, hey, instead of doing traditional, I'm going to use the word conditioning, which I don't use anymore, but I'm just going to use it for this because at the time we used that word conditioning, Matt. We're not going to do traditional conditioning. We're going to let them go do X today, and then whatever it was always some kind of game. And the kids were just animals at it, right? They're competing left and right. Matt, do you remember what we did at Oviedo? We did a couple things. You remember one of the games we played?
We did a lot of things.
We just rolled a ball out there and let them go.
Yeah. Like there was many times we just did that.
We did the spike balls.
Yeah, we did spike ball one time. We did aerial football. We used to break out water balloons randomly at the end of this, and those kids run around with water balloons is probably some of the best conditioning they got.
Coach, the other one I'm thinking of that we did, I don't even know if you can do it anymore, but we did at the time, but we're not coaching, so we'll be all right. We did dodgeball, and those kids competed like maniacs. And they're like, half the kids are out there doing basically backflips, like trying to avoid the ball and everything. And I remember looking at you and be like, God, if we could compete like this in everything we did, we'd win a lot of games. Those kids were so intense over dodgeball. And I'm like, why can't you be this intense when we're doing, whatever drill? And it's just like you're saying, Coach, it's not that fun. But if we did a more fun drill, they would do it.
I love dodgeball. I love all those, handballs and speedballs and things like that. I bring the basketballs out once a year and I say, all right, we can play 5v5 because we get the campus rack. We have the courts for it. I always have a kid that rolls his ankle playing 5v5 basketball. So I think we're done with that. But for, like clockwork, I'm like, okay. And I love all these things. And I love what you get out of them, the intensity of the competition. Can I do stuff that looks more like football though? So I'm not just playing kickball and I'm not just playing speedball and I'm actually teaching them some skills and things and still get the same level of competition out of them. And, a lot of these drills do that. So that's my
I think you found that medium.
5v5 basketball and let's do this instead.
Yeah, no, I think you found that point where you've blended it. I think that's what excites me about talking to you about it. And I can't wait till the course comes out because I definitely want to see it too. Because we always talk, it's everything as a high school coach. And, I'm sure, I know there's plenty of college guys that went out there, but I can only speak to being a high school football coach. Matt, we talked about this all the time. Like, how do we get them to compete? How do we do something more fun? That was a constant conversation in our coaches' room. And we were only creative to an extent, probably nowhere near as creative as you, Coach. So we need to probably go back a decade and have you come find us and teach us that. So if we get a time machine, we could do that.
Myself.
Yeah.
I actually put in the introduction. I have a highlight tape of our training from 2017, 2018. And it was it was mat drills, it was sled pushes, it was 5-10-5, which was great. We got after it. I had a bunch of dogs in the weight room, but like it didn't get us over the hump, didn't help us win a championship. And I'm like, man, I have been doing a little bit, I can get them stronger, I can get them faster, and I can work at football stuff at the same time. There's a way to do it all.
I think you do both.
Figure out how to do it and make it work.
Yeah. It's like you said, right? There's a place for 5-10-5 and all and pushing sleds and all that. Absolutely. There's also a place for competing, having fun and doing that. And I think that's what excites me about the future of football is finding the way to do those things. And I think the coaches that find the way to do that at the high school level are going to be successful, right? The coaches that are like, hey, let's find 2 new things in the offseason. Let's find 2 new things here. Let's find 2 new drills. Those are always the coaches that I talk to that are doing that have these great ideas. They're always the ones that are winning. It's shocking, right? And I'm sure if you're listening, there's some coach that that has done the same thing for 20 years and still won state championships, and that's fine.
It's fine.
But for the most part, a lot of the guys I talk to, they're always like, hey, man, check out this thing I learned at this clinic. And they tell me about it, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And so I think this stuff that you have will be great for coaches.
And I'm just thinking now too, like obviously at the high school level, this stuff is great, but even at the college level, if we're running a summer camp, and we want to evaluate whether or not these kids are, scholarship worthy. You can put them through drills and you can have them run over bags and stuff like that. And the freak athletes will always be freak athletes.
Yeah.
But if you put them, you bring a bunch of high school kids in and you say, all right, we're going to go 1v1 in the box right now. Let's see which wide receivers can get open and let's see which DBs can close this thing out. Like now you start to see a kid who may have been a freak athlete who can't react to save his life, or doesn't know how to close in space. And you're like, oh, so you're just one of those big bodies. You're not a football player, and you start to find out a little bit. I mean, that's why you do 1v1s at a camp, if the camp has it, or you do 1v1 pass rush, but then looks garbage. I hate that. So that's not a good evaluation of talent either. But for your skill players, at least, like put them in some of these situations at a camp. 1, the kids are going to have way more fun at the camp. And then 2, you probably will get a little more of an honest evaluation of whether or not they're players.
Yeah. Coach, I'm with you. There needs to be a new way. I worked in recruiting at the college level. I was appreciative that my head coach at the time, who was Jimbo Fisher, was always like, don't ever look at clips of them in underwear, which I'm totally aligned with. The pass rush of the
combine is because there's nothing reactive. The only reactive thing is catching a football. But,
and that even I get it. The pass rush thing is kind of reactive and stuff, but I'm like, look, these guys aren't in pads. Like it's just so different, and the leverage is different, and the hand contact is it right. Like, look, I know when I pass rush a guy in shoulder pads, I have a place I can grab and do right. And like when you're not wearing shoulder pads, it's harder to grab this right here, right?
And I know what moves I can do, and I know if the slide is coming to me, I can't do this, I can't do that. Or even I watch NFL teams that do pass rush stuff, and it's like, why don't you mix in a draw in your 1v, when you're doing 1v1s? Why don't you mix in a zone read once in a while so this kid can't just tee off every single pass rush? Like keep them honest on the defensive side a little bit. And
we did that in pass rush. We incorporated
more live.
We were really bad at retracing screens one year. So I kind of looked at my D-line coach and I was like, if I look down at pass rush and I don't see a screen every 6 plays, I'm going to be pissed off. I'm not really mad at the coach, right? We're just kind of, we had a really great relationship. But like you said, we started to mix those other things into those drills because it's all what you're saying. Like we need more stimulus, right? If they're just pass rushing and they're just doing that every time, well, yeah, of course he can cut it loose and be a pretty good pass rusher when he gets to just pass rush and he gets to get in a super wide 9 and do it. But like, what happens if it's a game, like you said, he sits in a wide 9 and they run draw? We got a problem. All right. So I'm with you, just more stimulus in these drills. And I think that's what you're talking about in the offseason too. Matt, sorry, if you're listening, Matt got cut off and he's back on. We're talking about just adding active, more stimulus to drills, like in a pass rush drill, every once in a while throwing a screen or running a draw to make the D lineman react to that, not just flat out pass rush. in doing those things because we want to see players and be able to evaluate them. And so that was a good idea. Before you got cut off, Coach was also talking about doing some of these drills at a camp to see how kids move, right? We all see the traditional crap that everyone does at the camp that you bring, the mega camp where you show up with 10,000 kids. But like you said, if you're a superior athlete and you can move and stuff, some of these drills really make you shine.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen great kids run over bags and, you point and they run that way and they run that way. And then they finish by catching a ball, and catching a ball is the only reactive thing they've done all day. It's like, put that linebacker against a running back and throw a little a sail route or something. And like, let's see if he can actually cover this guy. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
I'll give that kid a scholarship. You can cover that route, but.
Well, you can manufacture drills, Coach. Everyone can look good through a ladder if you practice long enough, right? Yep. You can kind of manufacture 40 times. We've seen it. We've seen guys that run good 40 times at the combine, and you just feel like they're not as fast as they are, and vice versa. I've seen guys run bad 40 times and never get caught. I always say, I was like, look, this guy ran a 4.6, but I've never seen him get caught in an NFL game, so I guess he's not that slow. So, but, so this is awesome. So, Coach, let's kind of wrap this up. And so we're going to go to, here in a couple of weeks when this episode launches, it's going to be www.scoresandstops.com, right? They're going to be able to go there and get the entire course, correct?
Be all there. Try to keep it as simple as possible. Scores and stops.
Scoresandstops.com. If you're listening, we'll have it in the description. Hopefully it just popped up in a banner across the YouTube. We're trying some new things, so hopefully that works as well. Additionally, if you're still listening, go ahead and click that subscribe button, like this video, do all those things that help the board drill grow. And again, if you're interested in any of our written content, we do write a bunch of articles a year. It's on www.boarddrill.com. Coach Leech may be interested in, because we write a bunch on FCS football. In fact, I think our last 9 articles are all on FCS, because that's who we've been highlighting this year. So it's been really good this year.
Heck yeah. we've been running the ball pretty good this year. So if you need another article, run the ball. Let us
tell you this.
Pretty solid too.
I'll say this out loud. If anyone's willing to offer me all 22 film, I'll write 100 articles on their team. My biggest problem is, I probably shouldn't talk about this, the way I have to get film is basically I have to screen cap it from a feed, which takes me, so I have to do that, then I have to go and edit it, cut out all the stops, and then I have to go in and break it down. So it's like a 9-hour process for every game I do. So it's super fun. But
I got you. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, just sneak it in there. Or just say hey, you can give away all your opponent's film to me, and then there you go. I'm just kidding. So, Coach, like always, we love having you on. We're a huge fan of you and everything you do. If you ever need anything from us, let us know. But we appreciate you coming on tonight and talking a little bit about scores and stops.
Oh, you guys are doing it the right way. So I appreciate you bringing me on. This is great.
It's fantastic. Well, Coach, have a great night. For me and Matt, signing off. We'll see you next week on the Board Drill.